In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. I greet you, my beloved brothers and sisters, and regular viewers of the Imagination Show. I greet you in the greeting words of peace. We say it in the ancient tongue of Arabic, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Welcome, 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 dear beloved family, Imagination family. My name is Brother Leo Muhammad, and sitting alongside me is my beloved sister, my beloved friend, my beloved wife, Sister Claudia Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you all in the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
Happy
salam.
Savior's Day to you all.
Happy Savior's Day to you too, beloved.
Pray to Allah that you are all safe and well and enjoying the countless blessings from Almighty God Allah. Thank you once again for joining us wherever you are on the planet Earth. We really appreciate your time. Apologies for the late start today, technical difficulties, but everything is in the hands of Allah and we still roll.
Yeah, absolutely. We're still rolling, but we need some feedback. I need to know that you're actually able to pick us up and that things are happening, because we've had some really difficult problems today, dear family, unable to bring you the usual half an hour of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan before we actually get started proper with myself and Sister Claudia on camera. So, your feedback would be your feedback would be very helpful, just to know that you are receiving us loud and clear, and that everything is set. Yeah, how has it been? It's been a really, really difficult few hours, in truth. Not 100% sure exactly what's happening with the machinery, with the technology, but it's been giving a lot of problems. And so I can't see anything on here in relation to.
Yeah, I can't see any notes.
Yeah.
I can see us.
Is that live?
Yes.
There's
Yeah, here it is. All good with video and audio.
okay.
Thank you, 8th Electronics. Thank you for that.
Praise be to Allah.
Thank you, Brother Stephen Brown, for that also.
That's good to know.
So let's go.
Okay.
Take a deep breath.
Yes. Inshallah. All right, family. Well, it's a very, very difficult process. This process, sometimes I know probably we make it look quite easy, but sometimes it just is a real difficult process. Let's have a look. So, beloved family, don't forget at this time to tell a family member, a friend, a relative, somebody that you care about. Let them know that the Imagination Show is live and direct right now on Zoom and also on YouTube. And as always, we say welcome to episode 150 of the Imagination Show. Today is Thursday, October the 3rd, 2024.
A third already.
Once again, we're in that month that they've given to us as Black people. They call it Black History Month here in the UK. In America, it's in the month of February that they give Black people a month. And so Black History Month has begun here in the UK. And the weather, it wasn't too bad today. It's pretty nice today, but you can feel it's changing. We're moving into that, autumn, winter type of cycle. But we pray that wherever you are on the planet, that you are doing well and that you are continuing to enjoy the many blessings of Almighty God, Allah. Finally, I've got that up. Normally, before the show starts, I'm able to send out a greeting to all of you in the chat, but I wasn't able to do that today. But here we go, family. Today's title is The Pathology of the Black Hypocrite. The Pathology of the Black Hypocrite. I wish I could show you the thumbnail that my son produced to send out to people. But I can't show it to you right now, but I really liked it. I haven't told him thank you yet, but it shows the image of the character played by Samuel L. Jackson in the movie Django, the house Negro, the wicked individual who seemed to relish punishing his own people and really taking care of the slave master's business. And so we're looking at the pathology of, this black hypocrite, which is a very real thing that we need to deal with in the black community. We're not going to be able to be successful in our endeavors when it comes to our freedom, justice, and equality, unless we appreciate that a significant part of the problem that we face is from within. It's not necessarily from without, and we have to, have a good look at self, have a good look at our families, have a good look at what's within if we're going to successfully navigate our way out of the spider's web, out of the trap that has been laid by our enemy, that we've been ensnared within that trap now for some 400 plus years. Dear family, the Holy Quran, chapter 9, verse 67 to 68 says, the hypocrites, men and women, are alike. They enjoin evil and forbid good, and withhold their hands. They have forsaken Allah, so He has forsaken them. Surely the hypocrites are the transgressors. Allah promises the hypocrites, men and women, and the disbelievers the fire of hell to abide in it. It is enough for them, and Allah curses them, and for them is a lasting chastisement. That's such a powerful scripture, dear family, found in the Holy Quran. It says they enjoin evil and they forbid good, and they withhold their hands. Withholding the hand means they hide what they do. They hide their handiwork. They do stuff, wicked stuff, but they hide it. They disguise it. It's sleight of hand, you see, and they promote evil and they forbid us from doing good. They forbid the people from doing good. He says, so He has forsaken them. Allah has forsaken them. Sometimes some of us we're very wishy-washy in our pronouncement. God loves everybody. No, He doesn't love everybody. He doesn't love the hypocrite. He doesn't love the one who says, I believe, and then turns back on their belief. The one who says, I believe, but is a liar. He's pretending to believe only to deceive other believers, or in his vanity, he thinks he can even deceive God. See? Surely the hypocrites are the transgressors. Allah promises the hypocrite, men and women, and the disbelievers, the fire of hell to abide in it. It is enough for them, and Allah curses them, and for them is a lasting chastisement. Dear family, we are dealing today with the pathology of the black hypocrite. Now, the word pathology is taken from a branch of medical science that is focused on the study and diagnosis of disease. Clinical pathology involves the examination of surgically removed organs, tissues, biopsy samples, bodily fluids, and in some cases, the whole body autopsy. So it's a methodology of really looking scientifically at the body, or looking at the tissues, or looking at the particular item, the particular thing, the particular disease, to see its manifestation, to see how it works, to see how it's come about, to see its pathway, to see what it's doing. You will notice that in pathology, you've got P-A-T-H, path, because it's really the way, it's the way of the thing. It's the pathology. We're looking at the pathology of the hypocrite, of the black hypocrite. You see, what's his way of operation? How does he make himself manifest? Because like with so many things in life, there is a mode of operation. There's a way that they operate. There's a way that they do things. There is a way in order to identify what that particular disease is. The reason why you do an autopsy after death is to find out how the person died. You see, what was the cause of death? And so we have to appreciate that there is a pathology to hypocrisy, and we need to be able to identify that behavior when it makes itself manifest.
Now, at a largely forgotten aspect of Bush's war in Iraq, the vast domestic propaganda campaign that occurred in the United States before the invasion began. The story centers on a young Kuwaiti woman named Nayira. On October 10th, 1990, the 15-year-old girl gave riveting testimony before Congress about the horrors inside Kuwait after Iraq invaded.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
So I want you to appreciate, dear family, how, America, in their desire to go to war against Iraq and against Saddam Hussein, who was the enemy then. Today, the enemy is Iran. Today, the enemy is Hezbollah. Today, the enemy is Hamas. Today, the enemy is Putin. Today, the enemy is Kim Jong-un. Today, the enemy are all of these entities. But yesterday, it was Saddam, it was Libya, it was Muammar Gaddafi, it was Assad, and we can go on and on. But the pathology remains the same in that, see, this is a Kuwaiti girl. This is the country that they wanted to attack in order to attack Saddam, who had gone into Kuwait. And they're using a Kuwaiti in order to justify their planned attack against the Iraqi people, using the disguise that, oh, we haven't got an argument with the Iraqi people. We've got an argument with Saddam Hussein, the leader. They always will highlight the leader and will give you the impression that their problem is with that leader. And by the way, even if that was the case, even if the problem was with the leader, how dare these people believe that they have the authority to go around the world and do this regime change, which is what they do everywhere. They don't like a particular leader won't do what they want him to do. And so they will engineer coups, or they will engineer other, manufacture other excuses to somehow usurp or bring down or destroy that leadership. And so I just want you to look at this little girl here and listen to her testimony before Congress, because this is all part of the propaganda produced by America in order to justify going to war against Iraq, and in the end, killing over 1 million people and displacing God knows how many other millions after. And Iraq has never been the same since. Iraq today is a real messed up place on the basis of what America, Britain, and the so-called allied nations did in that country. So please understand this, dear family. We've got Black people in our ranks, in our midst, with this kind of mentality, and who can be manipulated and who can be used in the same way and in the same manner that this young girl was used by America.
My name is Nayira, and I just came out of Kuwait. My sister, with my 5-day-old nephew, traveled across the desert to safety. There was no milk available for the baby in Kuwait. They barely escaped when their car was stuck in the desert sand, and help came from Saudi Arabia. I stayed behind and wanted to do something for my country. The second week after an invasion.
And just imagine, everything that you see this girl doing and saying here now is totally 100% fake. She is pretending. This is an act that you're witnessing. Let's continue, dear family.
I stayed behind and wanted to do something for my country. The second week after an invasion, I volunteered at the Al-Adan hospital with 12 other women who wanted to help as well. I was the youngest volunteer. The other women were from 20 to 30 years old. While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators, and left the children to die on the cold floor. It was horrifying. I could not help but think of my nephew.
Nayira's testimony was rebroadcast across the country and marked a turning point in public opinion on going to war. President George H.W. Bush repeatedly cited her claims.
They had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
And I really hope you're listening, family, because again, what we say, the leopard never changes his spots. You see, Allah says of himself, I don't change. See, Allah is righteous through and through. His way of doing things remains constant. You can actually set your watch, you can set your timer, you can rely on God's system that he's created because it doesn't deviate. But guess what? Satan likewise doesn't deviate from his mode of operation. He doesn't deviate from his wickedness and his wicked deeds. See, because as you're watching this, what you should be thinking about is the 40 beheaded babies that you heard about not too long ago in Israel on the 7th of October, 40 beheaded babies that never happened. But then who did you hear repeating it? You heard Biden, Joe Biden, the president of the United States of America, the so-called most powerful country in the world, repeating that big lie. Why? To justify genocide against the whole people and innocent Palestinian people. This is how these people operate, dear family.
3 months after Nayira testified, President George H.W. Bush launched the invasion of Iraq. But it turned out Nayira's claims weren't true. No human rights group or news outlet could confirm what she said. It also turned out Nayira was not just any Kuwaiti teenager. She was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador to the United States, Saad Nasser al-Sabah. She had been coached by the public relations firm Hill & Knowlton, which was working for the Kuwaiti government. Now, at a largely forgotten aspect of Bush's war in Iraq, the vast domestic propaganda.
Coached by a public relations firm to put on that act in front of Congress to change public opinion and to be able to justify a war. This is the reality of when you have sellouts, because, this girl, maybe a teenager, but what was she doing? She was justifying an outside force now coming to bomb and destroy her own people, her own Arab people in her own Arab lands. For what? For nearness to America, for nearness, maybe to get a green card to go and live in the West. My God. You'd be surprised how many of our people are like this, you see? Now, dear family, the word hypocrite means a person who claims or pretends to have certain beliefs about what is right, but who behaves in a way that disagrees with those beliefs. See, in the Nation of Islam, we're taught that a hypocrite is one who says they believe and then goes back on that belief. See? That's very dangerous. A person who is really faking and pretending to be a believer whilst not believing at all. This is what the hypocrite that we're talking about today, this is what they do. So they will be you know, masquerading within the family as a family member, but really they're selling out the family to an outside force, whilst underneath they're pretending to be with the family. Does that make sense? See, in that first 4 letters, you see HYPO, hypo, because again, a hypocrite, like you get a hypodermic needle. What they do is that they operate underneath. It's a hidden type of behavior. It's a surface. They present one thing on the surface, but underneath or within, they are thinking something completely different. And so it's a hypocrite. It's a hypocrite. It's a hidden, like the hypodermic needle goes in and under the skin. That's how they operate. They operate beneath your ability to perceive what it is that they are really about. And so their whole makeup is one of deception.
Colin Powell soared to historic heights. That journey from his childhood in the South Bronx, always with him.
I'm a son of immigrants. My parents came here on banana boats from Jamaica, and all they said to me was, do your very, very best.
Even that claim, my parents came here on banana boats from Jamaica. Where you see any Jamaican coming on any banana boat? Well, the only people who talk like that are racist white people about coming on a banana boat. Our parents came on the SS Windrush. They came on a ship that the white man built and that they sailed on and came into the so-called United Kingdom in 1948. And I'm sure that when some of our people went to North America, they either flew there on a plane or went there on a ship of some description. But this banana boat, just the fact that he would say something like that, you see, but he's playing this card about, you know, I'm an immigrant from Jamaica, my parents. So he's playing that black card. So all of us, you know, as black people, we see a black man like this rising to some status within America or rising to some status within the UK. You can't be blamed for feeling some type of pride or some type of, you know, pleasure at seeing a brother, seeing a black man or a black woman, you know, doing something beyond any type of stereotype that's been laid out for us, maybe some street hustler or some drug dealer or some prostitute or some, you know, low-life character. So yeah, but what you don't know is that what he is aspiring to or rising to is to be a damn hypocrite to the very people that he is talking about his origins from. I mean, I just want you to think about how many people we see like this. And, you know, we get excited because, wow, you know, look at this brother, look at this sister, look what they're doing. But do you really understand that if the enemy is elevating one of us, what do you think that means? Do you think that that means that that person is really good for us? I just hope that we got our thinking caps on tonight, dear brothers and sisters, if we're going to understand this pathology of the hypocrite, the black hypocrite.
They said to me was, do your very, very best and always make sure that you love this country of ours.
And he did, breaking so many barriers along the way. The young man who went to still segregated Georgia for basic training at Fort Benning, rising to become the first black national security advisor, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and Secretary of State.
They will say that Colin Powell, first African American to ever hold the position of Secretary of State. And I'm glad they will say that, and I want it repeated. I want it repeated because I hope it will give inspiration to young African Americans coming along, but beyond that, all young Americans coming along.
That message he'd often deliver to America's kids himself.
Don't anyone ever tell you you are limited because you came from the inner city, because you're black, because you didn't go to the right schools. The only thing that should ever be a limitation is your own dream.
A great American, and his words that continue to lift and inspire.
See, but what does that mean? What does that great American mean? Did he do something that was actually good for us? And by the way, this presenter, Lester Holt, he's another one, you know, when it comes to the media. But does he uphold any type of standard that is good for us as a people, or does he uphold the status quo of the mass media, which is mostly a media that absolutely denigrates black people, destroys black people, just because you got a black face telling the news on the nightly news on NBC? It doesn't mean, dear family, that we have to be so foolish as to think that the person is there to represent us. You see, you have to be able to discern and look beyond the image that's been presented before us, because unfortunately, this is the problem that many of us have today. We can do that. All they have to do is stick a black face in front of us, and we just lose our minds. We stop thinking. And they know this about us. They know how easily it is to manipulate black people. My goodness. I hope you're listening, dear family, because this is serious business. Serious business. You know, I really find it scary to witness the length to which some black men and women will go to have nearness and acceptance from our former slave masters and their children, regardless of the lies that we're forced to tell and the evil results and consequences that flow from such wicked behavior. You see, you know, at a certain point, because remember, the black man and the black woman, our nature is righteous. Our very nature is God. This man, Colin Powell, his nature is God. His nature is righteous. So just imagine what type of mental gymnastics that this man has to do in order to sit in that seat and represent the evil that America has been representing all over the planet. Just think about that, man. Think about the torment that you would have to go through to put yourself through such wickedness. I mean, can you think? I mean, yeah, you know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, but think of all of them. Think of all of these black people who find themselves in these positions, and then they've got to do this talking with a frog's voice out of a snake's mouth. Go ahead. No, I thought you was going to say something. You know, it really, I do find it scary. I've got to be honest with you, brothers and sisters, and the reason I find it scary is because I know that a lot of us, we really struggle to just fathom the absolute trickery of Satan and how he manipulates and maneuvers black people into doing his bidding, which in the end marks us for death, marks us for the same punishment that he has earned and that he is deserving of. When we manifest this type of hypocrisy, where on the one hand, we are a righteous brother or a righteous sister by nature, but in our behavior, we are doing unrighteousness and wickedness, then what do we think is going to be the consequence?
Every statement I make today is backed up by sources, solid sources. These are not assertions.
And remember now, every statement that he's making here today is a damnable lie. But listen to the language that the man uses. He's setting it up. Every statement that I make here today is backed up by sources. Which sources? What, CIA? The National Security Council? You know, which sources? Just think about it, family. This is what and how we're being used.
Every statement I make today is backed up by sources, solid sources. These are not assertions. What we're giving you are facts and conclusions based on solid intelligence.
What does that say? On February the 5th, 2003, the U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell gave a presentation to the United Nations Security Council. He explained the rationale for the Iraq war, which would start in March 2003. So this is now them building up for the war, okay? This is February the 5th. The war is going to start in a month's time. And this is them now rationalizing, justifying a war which was based on a big lie. And they're using a black man, Colin Powell, to be the face of that persuasive lie in order to get the world into war.
What you will see is an accumulation of facts and disturbing patterns of behavior. The facts in Iraq's behavior demonstrate that Saddam Hussein and his regime have made no effort to disarm as required by the international community.
Big lie. You know, up to that point, dear family, do you realize that up to that point, for the last 12 years leading up to this statement by this brother, that Iraq had been completely disarmed, more or less, and that all of the weapons of mass destruction had been destroyed, according to Scott Ritter, who was a United Nations UN weapons inspector, and who at the time was telling them that there were no weapons of mass destruction, and that in Iraq at the time there was a no-fly zone that had been in place for years and years. Imagine, the Iraqis couldn't even fly their own plane in their own airspace because America had instituted a no-fly zone. So they could fly all over Iraq, but the Iraqis couldn't take off a warplane, and if they did, it would be shot down. So this is how much control they had over Iraq, even leading up to, and don't forget I said they were under sanctions for over 12 years, causing the death of over 500,000 children who couldn't get medicine. See, what you got to understand is the cowardice of this as well. See, not only have you disarmed the people and made sure that in a war scenario that they actually can't even fight back or defend themselves properly, not to mention all of the Iraqi generals that you'd already compromised and paid off to not fight in the event of you attacking Iraq, people that Saddam thought he had with him, but they're already in the had already been compromised and were in the pay of the Americans. See, this is like such a coward that they've got to make sure that you're completely disarmed, that you have no way of really defending yourself. Then they've got to tell lies on top of that to justify what they're about to do, so that, because remember now, you see, at the launch of the attack, what did they say to the world? Shock and awe. Shock and awe. See, because they just like when they dropped the atomic weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the whole idea of that was to shock and awe the planet Earth, to send a message to everybody on the planet, we're the big boys in town now. Don't mess with America because we run the show. And this is how these people operate. My goodness.
Indeed, the facts and Iraq's behavior show that Saddam Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Look at Kofi Annan's face. You think Kofi Annan doesn't know that this man is lying through his teeth? Because again, remember, I'm saying, look at all the black people. I don't know, that one sitting next to him is holding his head in his hands because he must be thinking, what the hell? But see, it's like honor among thieves. It's like they say there's no honor among thieves. You see, when you know that you're sitting in a corrupt room and that you know, people are doing things which are so low down and so underhand, because, you know, you're not talking here about somebody stealing some bread, you know, or somebody ripping somebody off for a few £1,000 or whatever. You're talking about somebody plotting an operation that's going to result in the death and the destruction of innocent men, women, and children to the tune of 1 million or more, not to mention those who are displaced. And then the wrecking of the infrastructure of the country. Iraq was rivaling many of the European nations in 2003. It was rivaling many of the European nations in terms of infrastructure, in terms of technology and all of that. Believe me, Iraq was not some backward place, okay? But after they finished with Iraq, 20 years later, it's a mess, man. It's a real mess. But this is what Colin Powell was plotting to bring about in this statement. Look, years later, Powell said that at the time he gave his speech, then President George W. Bush had already decided on military action. See, this is another thing. You know, right now you hear Blinken and Biden and Harris and all of them, oh, we want a ceasefire. You know, we're very close to a ceasefire. We're trying to encourage Israel to, you know, bring about a ceasefire. Oh, we don't want Netanyahu to do this. That we've got this red line Netanyahu mustn't cross. But in the meantime, here's another 20 billion. In the meantime, here's some more bombs. Because it's a lie. It's just a game that they play with the public while they do what they do. See, because one of the things that they do is they do genocide. One of the things that they do is ethnic cleansing. One of the things that they do is they kill innocent men, women, and children in order to rob and take over their land and their countries. This is what they do. See? But at the time, they'd be given the impression that, oh, you know, the decision to go to war had not yet been made. But according to this now, you know, because years later, they always tell you the truth when it's too late. But at the time, unfortunately, the vast majority of people, you know, we suck it up, hook, line, and sinker. And they just play the public, dear family.
Saddam Hussein has chemical weapons. Saddam Hussein has used such weapons. And Saddam Hussein has no compunction about using them again against his...
And the chemical weapons that Saddam Hussein used against the Kurds was given to him by America. Donald Rumsfeld was one of the main people who was responsible for allowing Saddam Hussein to have chemical weapons in the first place. See these people? See how wicked these people are? And if you notice how many times he says Saddam Hussein, Saddam Hussein, Saddam Hussein, like they've got a problem with some individual man and not the nation of Iraq that they wanted to completely retard and destroy and literally take back from its progression and its growth and its development, which is what they do to countries. But they say they're targeting the particular individual. And you start to think, yeah, that's what it's all about. It's about this man. You see, it's about Assad in Syria. You see, while the Syrian nation gets torn apart, you know, it's about Gaddafi in Libya, while Libya is ripped apart. You see, it's about Nasrallah, who they just murdered in Lebanon, and Hezbollah. It's about, you know, these individuals that they like to call out. It's the Ayatollah in Iran. But in reality, they destroy whole nations, whole countries on the basis of these lies.
And Saddam Hussein has no compunction about using them again against his neighbors and against his own people. And we have sources who tell us that he recently has authorized his field commanders to use them. He wouldn't be passing out the orders if he didn't have the weapons or the intent to use them.
See this image? This is when he held up a vial saying that this was anthrax, some deadly poison. And he's saying that this is what Saddam Hussein has got in his chemical weapons arsenal, and this is what potentially he was ready to use. I mean, and this type of theater is what the Israelis are very good at doing. They always bring some props into the UN to illustrate the lie, to illustrate the point that they're trying to drive home to the people. If you notice, just before this image, they were showing you some so-called mobile chemical weapons units that never existed. Somebody they just got an artist to just draw something and put it up on a screen, and that's, you're supposed to believe that that's real. Not like they've taken a picture, you know, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the U-2 spy plane flew over Cuba and actually took pictures of the Russian missiles on the land. Yeah, you could say, okay, that's real. But here you got people just doing some mock-up. One time, Benjamin Netanyahu came to the UN with a drawing of a bomb, a round bomb with a fuse, to demonstrate how close Iran was to a nuclear weapon. This is how sick these people are. And it's like a cartoon, and this is how they justify the killing of tens of thousands of people. But the wicked part of this that I'm really focused on tonight is the use of a black man. That's what I'm trying to get to, dear family. He said he believed it to be truthful at the time, although a great deal turned out to be wrong. Not a great deal turned out to be wrong. The whole damn thing turned out to be a big, dirty, stinking, smelly lie. That's the reality. See, even the language that's been used here, although a great deal turned out to be wrong. You see, dear family, you got to understand how Satan works.
This body places itself in danger of irrelevance if it allows Iraq to continue to defy its will without responding effectively and immediately. The issue before us is not how much time we are willing to give the inspectors to be frustrated by Iraqi obstruction, but how much longer are we willing to put up with Iraq's noncompliance before we, as a council, we as the United Nations say, enough, enough.
There was no United Nations Security Council resolution authorizing military action in Iraq. So again, you'll hear these people always talking about international law and how, you know, everybody should obey international law, and how whatever they do should be within the framework of the law. But the United Nations didn't authorize them to go and do what they did in Iraq, but they did it anyway. Over 1 million people came out on the streets of London and in other parts of the world and said, not in our name. They still went and did it. See, because again, the hypocrisy about democracy, the hypocrisy about the rule of law, when they are ready to break the law, they break the law with impunity. And the only people who really you've seen have been subject to any kind of international law, United Nations law, is these foolish African leaders who think that they can dilly-dally and do their madness like these white people that they're trying to mimic and copy. And then, you know, when they're ready, they throw them in the Hague, you see? And the next thing, they find themselves on trial because they thought that they were on equal power with the gangster white man. Man, don't even get me started about P. Diddy and all that nonsense that's going on there. Because you see, black people, you keep on, I don't know, somebody said this, I know it's been attributed to a black woman somewhere, that if you lay down with dogs, don't be surprised if you catch fleas.
The minister's mother.
It was the minister's mother. Praise be to Allah. Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's mother. If you lay down with dogs, don't be so. I don't know if I'm saying it 100% correct. I'm paraphrasing. If you lay down with dogs, don't be surprised if you get up and you got fleas. Okay, understand this, because we love to get ourselves wrapped up in these people's social their social equality. You see, not realizing that social equality is absolutely filthy and dirty.
We must not shrink from whatever is ahead of us. We must not fail in our duty and our responsibility to the citizens of the countries that are represented by this body.
Imagine, no shame to sit in a world body and just lie like that as a black man. Dear family, no matter the gender, when we decide to sell out to the enemy, we will say and do anything and everything to maintain the status quo of white supremacy. That's what we do. And Western dominance all around the world, even if the people on the other side who are being annihilated are in fact our own black or brown people. This is the sad reality of the pathology of the black hypocrite. When we will do evil against our own and on behalf of an enemy who hates us both. See, I've said it before, I say it again, even those of us who are selling out to the enemy, you think he loves you, he hates your guts. And he can never trust you because he knows that you're willing to sell out your own. You think he's going to trust you? Oh, man. Why do you think they all get given up in the end? See, why do you think they all think that they can, they're protected, and then all of a sudden, that when the enemy is ready, they're thrown to the wolves? Why do you think? Why do you think there's a pattern of all of these so-called black celebrities who all of a sudden?
If one looks at what happened to us on September 11th, we didn't connect the dots. There was a threat materializing that we didn't respond to. Saddam Hussein had been a threat from the time that he invaded Iran in the late 1980s through the 1991, when in fact he went into Kuwait, dragging us into war. We thought he had reconstituted his weapons of mass destruction. And in a context in which terrorism and weapons of mass destruction was a nexus that we could not allow, we decided that this was a threat that had to be dealt with.
That's not what you decided. You were connecting him to September 11th. You kept saying it, and you talked about we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud. There were no weapons of mass destruction, and the nexus of terrorism. You're just making words up. And if you were really concerned about that, if you hadn't been predisposed to going to war, if you hadn't, as every book has determined, that you had decided to go to war, you would have let the inspectors finish their job. We had determined that he'd reconstituted his weapons program. But you didn't let the inspectors, who couldn't find any weapons, do their job. She's...
The weapons inspectors wanted to, keep inspecting, searching for these so-called weapons of mass destruction. America wouldn't allow them to complete their job. They wouldn't allow them to do what they needed to do. And what this individual is talking about when he's talking about Condoleezza Rice, I don't know how many of you can remember her. She was part of the Bush administration, another black liar on behalf of the system. She and others, they were making a connection between Saddam Hussein and 9/11, September the 11th. Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, had nothing to do with September the 11th and the bringing down of those Twin Towers and an attack on the Pentagon, etc. But this is how far they went, you see, in order to try to justify the unjustifiable. And they really wanted to destroy Iraq, because Iraq at that time was like the #1 threat from their perspective to Israel. Their unsinkable aircraft carrier, as one of them have described Israel, and as Joe Biden has described Israel, that if Israel didn't exist, America would have to invent it, because that's how important strategically and militarily Israel is to America in the Middle East, because it's there as an outpost of America. It's like the 51st state of America. It's a vehicle for American domination in that part of the world, where it's a very strategic and very important place, where so much of the world's trade passes through and converges, and America's got to control it, and it's got to dominate it, and it's got to destabilize anything down there that might interfere with their hegemony. That's what Israel's job is to do. And that's why ever since 1947, 1948, that place has been absolutely in turmoil. Not because the ancient people of Iran have been destabilizing the region. They've been there from ancient times, and it was fine. It was tranquil. It was fine. Not because the Iraqis, Mesopotamia, that's in the Bible, not because they're the destabilizers. It was there. They've been there from thousands of years. Not because of Egypt in the Bible, thousands of years. Not because of any of these places, but because of an introduction of a brand new entity, a regime that came in 1948. And ever since 1948, the place has known nothing but warfare. Right now, Israel's at war with Syria. It's at war with Lebanon. It's at war with Iran. It's at war with Gaza. It's at war with the West Bank. It's at war with Yemen. And you're trying to tell me that all of these nations, they're all wrong. Israel is Keir Starmer, oh man, I don't even know how to describe him, talking about calling Israel she, like she's this damsel in distress, surrounded by all of these wicked men in the Middle East. Man, I'm telling you, family, we got to wake up. We better wake up. Condoleezza Rice was then, and we've got the modern day equivalent right now as well.
Program. But you didn't let the inspectors, who couldn't find any weapons, do their job. She's lying. She's, again, I hate to keep making the point, but she's either lying or dense. And I don't think she's dense.
She's not dense.
So she's lying. Or she's so out of the loop, but the inspectors were there. Why did you pull the inspectors out? They wouldn't have found any weapons. You wouldn't have had a reason to invade. What was the rush? The nexus of terrorism. It's frustrating, man, because then O'Donnell's going to point out here how many people died, and I think his estimates are low, crazy low. Here's the next bite. They get into it a little bit here. Condi and Condoleezza Rice. Shouldn't call her Condi. She's not my friend. She was Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. Condoleezza Rice and Lawrence O'Donnell.
Saddam Hussein was a threat. He had used weapons of mass
destruction. But we now know he wasn't
This
a threat.
was not... Lawrence, are we going to do this with my answers or with your commentary? We had not focused on the fact, you have not focused on the fact, that Saddam Hussein had been a threat to the United States of America, to the Middle East, since he invaded Iran. Now, we made the wrong call then, and we supported him against Iran. He then...
You hear the way she just slips that in? Yeah, we made the wrong call and we supported him against Iran. No, you financed him against Iran. They gave Iraq $80 billion to attack Iran. See how these people, how duplicitous they are? 1 minute they're with you, the next minute they're against you, And it's all manipulation and game playing. And unfortunately, especially as black people, we're just so gullible and foolish that we, even to this day, I believe that there's some of us who believe that America could be relied upon to bring about peace in the Middle East, not realizing that America and Israel, they're just playing a game. They're both in it together. You know, you really think that America is gonna, they say, they could just stop all this with one phone call. Yeah, they could stop it with a phone call to Netanyahu, but not for the reasons that you think. Not because they want to stop the war or they want to save the lives of Palestinians in Gaza, or they want to save the lives of people in Lebanon. Not for that reason, for their own geopolitical or strategic reasons. That's the only reason why they would stop it, if they felt that they were in a position now where they were losing, or they had to switch gear and change it up for their own benefit, not for the reasons that you think, like, oh, you know, these people have actually got peace in mind. We're living in a fool's paradise, man. These people know nothing but war. They are the warmongers. They're the bloodshedders. They're written of in your scriptures. You just need to read the scripture and understand what you're looking at.
It became a more monstrous threat. After 1991, shooting at our aircraft in the no-fly zone that was supposed to be keeping his Air Force.
Did you hear that? 1991, the Iraqis were shooting at our aircraft in the no-fly zone. So they were shooting at American aircraft flying in Iraq. And this is what the woman is citing as how terrible the Iraqis are. How dare you shoot at our planes flying in your airspace, because we've imposed on you in your own space a no-fly zone. This is the arrogance of white supremacy being spoken by a black woman. Damn.
On the ground, trying to reconstitute his weapons of mass destruction, breaking out of the sanctions through the scandalous oil for food program. Yes, he
breaking out of the sanctions. So they sanction a country, and the country's supposed to sit there under sanctions and don't try to do anything to relieve those sanctions, to lift those sanctions, in order that their people can begin to flourish and live a normal existence. Imagine that. Just think about what she's saying. These are all the things that she's charging Saddam with, trying to break out of the sanctions that had been imposed by America. Why do you think now you've got all of these nations joining BRICS, and why BRICS is now a rising power in the world, in what they call the multipolar world, not a unipolar world run by America and Britain, but are now a multipolar world where they understand that they can't rely on the dollar. They can't allow you to be able to freeze their assets whenever you feel like it, put them under sanctions, people starving in their countries, where you can manipulate their currency and manipulate their sovereignty. No. Hence, now you have BRICS, because the people are saying, no, man, we have to break out from under your control, and if necessary, introduce a brand new currency to the world. Man, family, I wish we would understand how Satan is moving and has been moving, and how he uses us to be the face of his evil.
was a threat. With or without mature weapons of mass destruction, he was a threat. And nothing of value is ever won without sacrifice. Of course, the lives lost will never be brought back. But in Iraq, that is not a threat to invade its neighbors, not a threat to reconstitute its weapons of mass destruction, not a threat to play Palestinian terrorists as suicide bombers. That's going to be a better Iraq and a better Middle East. And so, in fact, I think that what we did in Iraq will be demonstrated by history to be an important part, an important pillar of a new Middle East.
God. Really, Condoleezza? Yeah, where's this new Middle East that you predicted? And where are you? My God. Dear family, You know, as Black people, we have to stop this sellout mentality, man. We have to stop betraying our own. Dear beloved family, MJ Promotions Limited presents a Black History Month 2024 pop-up shop over 2 days, Saturday the 12th of October and Sunday the 13th of October. The time 12 till 6 p.m., 12 till 6 p.m. So that's midday till 6 p.m. And the location is at 1 Folden Road, London, UK, N16 7UR. Okay, it's going to be featuring unique apparel, books and gifts, arts and crafts, food and drinks, hair and skin products, and more. Are we going to have a stall there?
Yes.
Some of our brothers and sisters are going to be there with a
Proud
stall.
to be Black.
Proud to be Black will be there. And by the way, look out for the Proud to be Black merchandise. We will be advertising it on the Imagination Show. We got to promote
That's right.
Proud to be Black. We've got to, as a people, there's hardly anybody on the planet today who is bold enough to say proud to be Black. And we have to promote that concept, dear family, because unfortunately, we've lived under a scheme and under a system that's made us less than proud to be Black. And in truth, many of us desperately trying to be other than Black, other than ourselves, to the point where some of us don't even like the word Black. We see it as something negative, when in reality, Black represents pure beauty, pure power. If you understand that Black is not even a color. Black is where you get all the colors from, man. You can find the whole color spectrum in Black, dear family. Black is beautiful. And so look out for the Proud to be Black merchandise. And don't forget this pop-up shop on Saturday, 12th of October and Sunday, the 13th of October, time 12 till 6 at 1 Fulden Road, London, UK, N16 7 UK. If you make it down there, maybe we'll see each other there. Dear family, we are dealing this evening with the pathology of the Black hypocrite. This is the Black woman that was put in place by the Obama administration. Her name was Susan Rice, to lie on behalf of Hillary Clinton when Clinton messed up in Benghazi, Libya, and got the American ambassador killed when so-called Islamic militants attacked and overran the American diplomatic compound and the nearby CIA annex on September the 11th, 2012, resulting in the deaths of 3 more Americans and igniting a political firestorm of controversy back in the USA. You know, this was on September the 11th, 2012, when this incident took place, when, you know, some Libyans attacked the Americans in their compound, and also the CIA annex that was there, and absolutely destroyed it, and in the process killed their ambassador. And it was on Hillary Clinton's watch, and she messed up, and they tried to cover it up. But who did they use? Who was the woman that was going around telling the lies in order to cover for Hillary? It was Susan Rice.
What sparked the recent violence was the airing on the internet of a very hateful, very offensive video that has offended many people around the world.
Okay, I'm sure you remember that. That was Susan Rice, sent out by the Obama team to 5 different Sunday shows to blame the Benghazi terror attack on a video. We now know not true. Joining us now, the author of the book, new book, The Ranger Way. And this is the man who...
You know, imagine a Black woman or a Black man, and then you got the white man coming on and saying, yeah, not true. She's a liar, you know, because you see, family, there's nobody that can lie like the white man. Nobody that can lie like him. But see, when they get us into these positions where now we become liars on behalf of them.
That's right. There's that article I read after.
Okay.
who fought for 13 hours during the attack in Benghazi. Chris Paranto is with us this morning.
Yes, sir.
You were in Benghazi.
Oh, yes, sir.
Susan Rice did not display real truth about that. Now she's embroiled in a new scandal. What's your opinion now?
She's a liar. Pathological or not, she continues to lie. There needs to be some repercussions. The people in D.C. in these last 3 years with me dealing with this Benghazi issue, I've seen that a lot of them think they are untouchable. Trump has been given the opportunity really to show or set an example and show that these people are not untouchable.
Go ahead, Sister Claudia wants to read something. Are you reading from Message to the Black Man?
No, this is Message to the Black Man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's also in the Final Call newspaper. The title is Truth of the Guilty Made Known. What can the guilty say when the truth of their guilt is made known? I have been teaching for over 35 years what Almighty God has revealed to me of the truth of this subject, the origin of sin, the origin of murder, the origin of lying. Our deceptions originated with the creators of evil and injustice, the white race. I am sick, tired, and worn out with suffering from the persecutions cast against me and my people by the hands of the most wicked and deceiving race that ever lived on our planet.
Wow, listen to that.
I say, as David in Psalms, O Lord, persecute them and take them. None of them are righteous, no, not one. They are ever seeking to do harm to you and me every second of the day and night. They, white race, are not hostile toward me because I am a Muslim and because I am teaching the true religion, Islam, to my people and the worship of the true and living God, who is not a spook, but is flesh and blood, Allah. They are hostile against me and my followers because we are the original Black nation whom they were made to hate from the very beginning of their existence 6,000 years ago. They were not made to love or respect any member of the darker nation.
Listen.
For they are by nature, as Almighty Allah has taught me, incapable of loving even themselves.
Wow.
They cannot produce good, for they are without the nature of good. They cannot love Allah and his religion Islam, for it is against their nature to submit to Allah, the Lord of the world. All manner of evil and corruption has come from the white race. Though we as a people have become affected by over 400 years of contact with this race of devils,
Listen.
we have become like them in many ways, but we are not by nature evil or unrighteous, for we are not a grafted product from any other race. So we are not weak physically nor mentally toward doing evil. Almighty God, Allah, has appeared in the Western Hemisphere, North America, to tear off the covers of this wicked nation for their evils committed against our people, the so-called Negroes. We have been living under the God of darkness while in the absence of the God of light. In the same way that the light of day appears to put out the black of night, so it is that Almighty Allah has come with truth to cast out and destroy falsehood. As long as the devil is on our planet, we will continue to suffer injustice and unrest and have no peace. The guilty who has spread evilness, corruption throughout the land must face the sentence wrought by their own hands.
Wow.
I am offering you from Allah a kingdom of righteousness that will never decay, a new world that will be based upon the principles of truth and justice while we live.
Wow. Praise be to Allah. Thank you, beloved.
Because that's what they put, always a black face as the liars, the pedophiles. This is what they're pushing now, black people.
Yeah. And unfortunately, too many of us are falling for it.
Absolutely.
Because we've been among them and now we've adopted their ways.
That's right.
And now they can put up a Susan Rice or a Condoleezza Rice or a Colin Powell as the liars, you see, because we've fallen right into their trap, right into their technology, and now we are literally mimicking them. Dear family, when you're dealing with a pathology, you're dealing with a way, okay? And we have to be able to identify this way. We have to understand that we cannot continue to take these people's money, take their gifts, take their little trinkets in order to sell out our own people. You know, that 30 pieces of silver that you find written in the Bible that we were willing to take in order to sell out, Judas was willing to take in order to sell out Jesus. We can't be that kind of people today. In the Holy Quran, chapter 15, verse 39 to 43, it says, he said, my Lord, have you judged me to be in error? This is the devil talking. This is Satan talking. This is Iblis, Satan talking to God. He said, my Lord, have you judged me to be in error? I shall certainly make evil seem good to them on earth. So he's promising God that he's going to make evil fair seeming. He's going to make evil look like a good thing to the people on earth. And I shall cause them all to deviate. His purpose is to get us all to be away from the path of God, the way of God, and into a pathology of evil, into a pathology of hypocrisy. I shall cause them all to deviate, except your servants from among them. You see, the purified ones. Now, look, dear family, do you understand that purification is a tough thing? And that, you know, oftentimes if you want to purify something, you put it into fire.
Pressure.
Yeah, you got to put it under some severe pressure or into some hot steam or some hot flames in order to cleanse it and clean it and cure it of dross or clean it of disease. See, he says here, this is Satan, except your servants from among them, the purified ones. So understand that if we're going to be purified, we're going to have to go through something, man. We have to go through the fire of purification. We have to go through the heat of purification. We got to go through some difficulty in order to come out the other side clean and pure, devoid of this enemy's filth. Satan talking, except your servant from among them, the purified ones. God says to Satan in reply, he said, this is a right way with me. See, this is fine. I understand that this is what's going to happen, that my purified ones, you're not going to be able to get them, and that you are condemned. Yeah, this is right with God. And he says, Allah continues, as regards my servants, you have no authority over them except such of the deviators as follow you. So understand that it's our responsibility, if we follow Satan, if we go along with him, you know, those of us who want to go along to get along, if we go along when we know that something is wrong, then we're taking punishment onto our own shoulders, onto our own necks. We are responsible, dear family. You see, Allah says, my servants, you have no authority over them, except such of the deviators as follow you, and surely hell is the promised place for them all. So Allah promises that if we follow the devil, we're going to end up in the same hell as him. And remember, hell is not some place under the ground with some hot flames. It's talking about we're going to be in a hell of a life, okay? A hell of a situation, a hell of a dilemma, a hell of a condition if we continue to follow this wicked demon into his hellish life. I think it was last week we mentioned the fact that one of the first white civilizations, one of the first Caucasian civilization was a Greek civilization called the Hellenistic civilization. That's where hell comes from. Their civilization is a civilization of hell. They can't handle a peaceful place and a peaceful civilization. Did you know that the word utopia when you translate it into, when you break it down in English? Do you understand that utopia means no such place? Utopia, that beautiful place, that place where it's just perfect, it's just wonderful. Utopia. According to English, utopia means no such place, because they have no such concept of a place where it's peace and tranquility, love and harmony. They talk this stuff, but they cannot ever produce such a place. It doesn't exist for them. Whereas for us, that's a standard. It's a standard. It's a standard that was on the planet for trillions of years before the white man was even conceived. Dear family, I know you don't believe me. I hope you will study and learn to appreciate what we're saying here on the Image and Nation show.
Following his visit to Washington, David Lammy's second foreign trip as Foreign Secretary was to Jerusalem, where he posed for a photo opportunity with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Imagine his second foreign trip as Foreign Secretary. This is the Labour government now. You know, supposed to be for the working class, supposed to be for the ordinary people. His second foreign trip, where is he? In Israel, shaking hands with these genocidal maniacs. A black man. This is where he finds himself. This is where he's going, cozying up to these people. My God, family, think about what we're doing, man.
Washington, David Lammy's second foreign trip as Foreign Secretary was to Jerusalem, where he posed for a photo opportunity with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Nothing significant came of that visit other than the optics of the UK standing with Israel and treating it as an ally rather than a rogue state facing charges of genocide and war crimes at the International Court of Justice. Last week, David Lammy was asked in Parliament.
So you got to understand this. You know, this is a nation that's facing those charges of genocide and war crimes. The ICC, International Criminal Court, I think they've asked for warrants to be issued for the arrest of Netanyahu and Gallant in Israel, but that's not happened yet. But imagine, but this is showing you how blatant the disregard for international standards and international law is, because where is Lammy? Rubbing up his shoulders with these people, shaking hands and taking photo ops, basically, you know, showing his allegiance and his oneness with these people who are nothing but rogue criminals on the international stage. A black man. Just think about it, family. Think about what we do.
Court of Justice. Last week, David Lammy was asked in Parliament by a Green MP if the government would be suspending arms sales to Israel. His response was straight out of the decades-old Israeli playbook of projecting its own aggression on others. He said, "This is one of the toughest neighborhoods in the world, and Israel is surrounded by people who would see its annihilation." It's been a
people. This is one of the toughest neighborhoods in the world, and Israel is surrounded by people who will see its annihilation. No, Israel has gone into that neighborhood and created absolute madness and mayhem for over 75 years. Ever since its introduction into that region has not known peace. But it's not the people surrounding Israel, it's Israel itself who has made war with all of these nations and has a philosophy about Haaretz Israel, or the greater Israel, and they're looking to expand into Jordan and all these other places, dear family. Right now, Israel is still occupying territory in Syria, still occupying territory in what's the country? Lebanon. Still occupying. It's not just the Gaza and the West Bank and those Palestinian territories, but they're still occupying territories in other nations around about them, man. And they're looking to expand all the time. This is how these people are.
Attacked by the Houthis with missiles firing from Hezbollah. But Lammy has nothing to say about what Israel has been doing during the last 10 months, with the killing of up to 50,000 Palestinians and 500 Lebanese since October. Lammy also fails to recognise that Netanyahu has sabotaged every tentative ceasefire deal that Israel's parliament has rejected out of hand a two-state solution, and that Netanyahu has said he wants the war to continue indefinitely until Hamas is destroyed, which his own army has stated is impossible. Last week, the International Court of Justice released a decisive opinion on Israel's occupation and its policies towards Palestinians. It judged the occupation is in fact an illegal annexation amounting to apartheid, and it ruled that all settlements in the West Bank must be dismantled and the...
See? And does Israel take any notice of any of that? No. Do you know how many resolutions Israel has ignored? Do you know how many times they've been ruled against in the United Nations and they just ignore them? And do you know how many times America has used this veto to stop any type of sanction or any type of curtailment of Israel's wicked behavior in that region? Do you know how many times America has blocked by using a veto? Do you know how many times Britain has intervened to save Israel's backside? Because this is what they do. And using a black face, Mr. Lammy.
Occupation and siege of Gaza must end. Western powers, including Britain, can no longer be in any doubt that international law commands them to cease aiding Israel and to cease providing diplomatic and political cover for its atrocities. David Lammy knows this.
David Lammy knows this. David Lammy knows better. You know, David Lammy is somebody that I've come across on a few occasions. He knows me, he knows about me. And a couple of times when I've been in his vicinity, the man acts like a scared rabbit, trying to avoid eye contact and looking away, looking everywhere else but at myself. Honestly, dear family, it's so pathetic the way some of our people behave, and they just bring the black nation into complete and utter disrepute. In our desperation for acceptance, we disgrace ourselves and we are mocked by those who we seek nearness to, because in our desperation for adoption into their way of life, we lose any semblance of self-respect or dignity, and we become the laughingstock of the people of the world who can clearly see the lack of character and the pathetic nature of our existence only to serve our enemy. Look at these white men mocking Lammy.
Now, Rod, I think it's a very unfair thing to do, to pick on people just because they're a bit thick. But then again, I've always been a very unfair person. So I want to remind you of David Lammy when he appeared on Celebrity Mastermind. This is our current current Foreign Secretary in all his intellectual glory. So take it away, Dave.
What was the married name of the scientists Marie and Pierre who won the Nobel Prize for Physics?
And just before we look at this, let me just say this. I remember one time I was in the court, in a high court, in a crown court, and it was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen in my life. A black barrister with the wig and the gown and the whole lot in the court. And when the man stood up and started to talk in this court with all these white people, he was talking with this plum in his mouth that made him sound more white, more upper crust, more upper class, more like he went to these Oxford and Eton and Cambridge schools like he went there for 40 years rather than the standard time that you would go to a university or a college for, and that he felt that he was more white than the white people in the courtroom. And as God is my witness, I saw so many white people in that courtroom, they looked embarrassed. They were laughing into their sleeves because here was a barrister, qualified barrister, a black man. But he was so desperate to sound like them that they were mocking him. Even the judge had a smirk on his face as if to say, you fool, coming in here trying to make yourself like you are one of us. So you got the white man just mocking Lammy, who God knows why he even went on Mastermind, because you see they're so desperate to show their knowledge of the white world. So now he's going to go on Mastermind, and it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing.
And so I want to remind you of David Lammy when he appeared on Celebrity Mastermind. This is our current current Foreign Secretary in all his intellectual glory. So take it away, Dave.
What was the married name of the scientists Marie and Pierre who won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903 for their research into radiation?
Antoinette.
Curie. Cockpit country is a rugged, inaccessible area on which Caribbean island?
Jamaica.
Pass.
Which fortress was built in the 1370s to defend one of the gates of Paris and was later used as a state prison by Cardinal Richelieu?
Versailles.
The Bastille. James Gandolfini played a mafia boss called Tony in which American television series?
Godfather.
The Sopranos. What name is used for the highest gallery of seats in a theatre?
Pass.
Who acceded to the English throne at the age of 9 on the death of his father Henry VIII in 1547?
Henry VII.
Edward VI. In chemistry, what French word is used for a tube for transferring measured amounts of liquids?
Pass.
Which country's so-called Rose Revolution of 2003 led to the resignation of its president, Edward Shevardnadze?
Yugoslavia.
No, it was Georgia.
It's frightening, isn't it?
The important thing there, and I've seen that a few times, and it's always good for a laugh, is he was asked about the Rose Revolution. Now, this was, I think, you put the year that he was asked this up. I think it was 2007, 2008, something like that. Yeah. At which point the Rose Revolution had just taken place. Yugoslavia had ceased to exist for more than a decade, and David Lammy was Labour's foreign affairs spokesman. I mean, it is beyond... The man is a plank, an absolute plank, and it's almost comic, you know, whether he's complaining to the BBC that it's racist to say that black smoke was issuing from the Pope's palace when they were choosing the next Pope.
That's right.
That's I
forgot about that.
Moron.
You see, family, even what that white man said at the end there, I don't know if there's any truth in it, where apparently Lammy was complaining about the black smoke that they wait to see coming out of the chimney at the Vatican to determine when either a pope has died or a new pope has taken office. But the point is this: it's like when you hear, as a black person, when you hear about, apparently we don't like the term black bin bags, or we don't like black sheep. See, to me, I'm talking personally. See, such nonsense has never bothered me. Mm-hmm. If it's a black bin bag, it's a black bin bag. If it's black smoke that comes out of the chimney, it's black smoke that comes out of the chimney. Why should I want it to be white smoke? If it's black sheep, that's your nursery rhyme. But you see, it wouldn't surprise me if it's true, and that these are some of the type of things that David Lammy would be complaining about. Because it's such stupidness. It's not anything of substance. The real stuff that we should be dealing with and complaining about and arguing for and standing on and advocating on behalf of our people for. And so, yeah, that's why they can mock and they can laugh, because, you know, we get on this stage that has been erected for us by our enemy, and we make a damn fool of ourselves, dear family. And we think that we're loved and we think that we're accepted. I'm sure I just saw somebody in the chat said something about him getting the sack tomorrow. HKA said, and you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Let's see how long he lasts. You see, strutting around like a frog speaking out of a snake's belly. It's just ridiculous, honestly, dear family, because, you know, we really think we've arrived when we these people elevate us and put us into these positions, not realizing that they're just using us for their own purposes. And once we've served our purpose, see ya, Negro. See you, Nignog. I hope everybody's good, family. I'm a little bit passionate about this one. I really don't like black hypocrites. I don't like black sellouts. I don't like black people who betray the black cause and who think that they can choose to act outside of themselves on behalf of an enemy against our own people. I can't abide by that. When seeking the White House, which is the highest office in the domain of Pharaoh, it is critically important that those of us who are voters should know that the person with the black or brown face who is seeking your vote, if elected, will first have been selected not to represent you, but to represent the system and government of white supremacy that never changes and must be maintained at all costs, and especially to your and my detriment. See? Understand this. These people that we get all excited about, see some of us now getting excited about Kamala the chameleon, chops and changes to suit the audience. Kamala, see us getting excited. Now we're determined to say that this woman is a black woman. You need to go to YouTube and have a look at Candace Owens and have a look at her investigation into the so-called blackness of this woman and realize that there's something very, very strange and very, very fishy about her family line and this so-called blackness, when in reality, if anything, she's Asian and she's Caucasian, but she's certainly not a black woman. She's not an African American. She's not an African Caribbean, and she's certainly not an African from the continent, you see? But we're so desperate to have somebody, you see, either we're jumping on the female bandwagon or on the so-called black bandwagon, and we think that by virtue of somebody looking like that, they're going to bring change, when the woman has already said up front, on camera, I will not do anything specifically for black people. But here we are, getting ready to waste our vote yet again.
Let the controversy begin. Newsweek magazine is making a splash with its new cover. It labels President Obama the first gay president. In the cover story, gay blogger Andrew Sullivan says that the president's decision to support...
You remember that? Newsweek magazine, Obama, the first gay president. See? Why? Let's have a look, shall we?
Magazine is making a splash with its new cover. It labels President Obama the first gay president. In the cover story, gay blogger Andrew Sullivan says that the president's decision to support same-sex marriage shouldn't have come as a surprise, because if you look at his record, he writes, it was 3 years in the making. Well, the president's new public stance was a huge topic from the Sunday morning pulpit. African-American pastors...
See, they use us to bring in all these things for all of these different groups and all of these different people. Nothing for black people. No progression for black people. But now you're the gay president because you're going to bring in gay rights for the gay community. You see? And now you see these black pastors now and these black churchgoers, they're perplexed. What's going on? This is the guy we voted for. This is the black face that we thought was going to do something for black people, was going to uphold a particular kind of standard. And now he is a gay president.
Stance was a huge topic from the Sunday morning pulpit. African-American pastors were a huge base of support for the president when he ran in 2008. Now, some seem torn about it.
People I know, people come up to me, are saying that they don't support this, they don't like this, they're disappointed with the president, and they plan to stay home.
You can marry without the church.
Right.
You can marry without religion and a ritual. Of course, within the context of the faith, we do marry, but it's a civil issue, and you can marry and divorce without the church.
Well, the president's expected to talk more about same-sex marriage today when Ricky Martin hosts an LGBT fundraiser for President Obama.
He's gonna hold a fundraiser, a gay fundraiser, same-sex marriage fundraiser for President Obama. See, we champion whatever the white man puts on the agenda, we will champion it using a black face. But when it comes to our people remain stagnant and remain in exactly the same place. See, black people got so excited when Obama was running, you see, but what did he do? What did he change? Because remember, he ran on the basis of change we can all believe in. You know, dear family, I find it fascinating and amazing when observing the psychological trauma that we put ourselves through each election cycle when they promote the next black or non-white candidate for political office, only to see that same one you put your faith in turn around and, like in Michael Jackson's Thriller, reveal themselves to be the same. You remember in Michael Jackson's Thriller when he's dancing with his back and then he turns around and he's one of the monsters? Yeah. Same thing. Turns around and reveals himself to be the same long-time enemy, only disguised in blackface, but speaking the language of the enemy and sometimes making the argument on behalf of the enemy even better than the enemy himself. Listen to Obama in Africa trying to persuade, Kenyans to accept same-sex marriage and all this LGBTQ plus stuff.
If you look at the history of countries around the world, when you start treating people differently, not because of any harm they're doing anybody, but because they're different, that's the path whereby freedoms begin to erode. And bad things happen. And when a government gets in the habit of treating people differently, those habits can spread.
When a government gets in the habit of treating people differently, all this is about talking about gays in Africa, as if the government in America treats people the same, as if there isn't racial discrimination and all manner of evils perpetrated by the United States government against its population. As if America is not divided along racial lines and along gender lines and along so many other lines in America. But you come to Africa trying to preach to Africans about accepting something as a black man that you have no right, you shouldn't even be dealing with that. And thank God the Kenyan president at the time, in his response, actually, responds in a proper way, rejecting this idea that they were trying to force on him. But understand this, in his rejection, what America then does is put sanctions on the country, okay? Then they start to manipulate to try to overthrow that president or to remove him or to undermine his authority or to destabilize the country. This is what these people do, because you won't accept a cultural madness from the West that they're now trying to foist or force onto everybody else on the planet. Do you understand that they hate Vladimir Putin because he rejects homosexuality in Russia and refuses to accept that woke nonsense in his country? That in Russia they still know that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and they're not confused. And as a result, he's hated. Oh, man.
Treating people differently, those habits can spread. If somebody is a law-abiding citizen who is...
And understand when you see Obama struggling, he's struggling to find words to articulate the nonsense that he's there to promote. That's why he's being so slow and deliberate and trying to find language, because it's not a natural thing for a black man to be promoting this. See, but he's been told what he is there in that office to do. And he's diligently, like a slave, carrying out his master's instructions. Just listen to the way he's there struggling to articulate the madness.
Is a law-abiding citizen who is going about their business and working in a job and obeying the traffic signs and doing all the other things that good citizens are supposed to do, and not harming anybody. The idea that they are going to be treated differently or abused because of who they love is wrong.
Because of who they love. See, they use the word love. See, family, do you understand that it wasn't that long ago in the West, in England, do you understand it wasn't that long ago that homosexuality was illegal? See, but when they've switched now, and they've all of a sudden become enlightened about this activity, so now they've got to, everybody else on the planet has got to accept it. But in Africa and in parts of the black world, we just don't, that's not our culture. That's not our way.
Full stop.
Just like President Obama, I think we also need to be able to speak frankly about some of these things. And the fact of the matter is that Kenya and the United States, we share so many values. Our common love for democracy, entrepreneurship, value for families. These are things that we share. But there are some things that we must admit we don't share. Our culture, our societies don't accept. It's very difficult for us to be able to impose on people that which they themselves do not accept. This is why I repeatedly say that for Kenyans today, the issue of gay rights is really a non-issue. We want to focus on other areas that are day-to-day living for our people. The health issues that we have discussed with President Obama, these are critical. Issues of ensuring inclusivity and of women, a huge section of society that is normally left out of the mainstream of economic development. What we can do in terms of infrastructure, what we can do in terms of education, in terms of our roads, in terms of giving our people power, encouraging entrepreneurship. These are the key focuses. Maybe once, like you have, overcome some of these challenges, we can begin to look at new ones. But as of now, the fact remains that this issue is not really an issue that is on the foremost mind of Kenyans. Right. And that is the fact.
That's right. You tell him, brother. But, you know, so many of the African leaders are under pressure, and so many of them are succumbing to these impositions from the West. And you'd be surprised. Some of them even go ahead of the West and allow their countries to be used as guinea pigs in experimentation with some of these new fangled, filthy things that they want to introduce to the world. Black people have been used in such a despicable way on the world stage by the 10% bloodsuckers of the poor and those who are wickedly wise and are using us to be the face of diabolical evils being perpetrated against other innocent human beings, instead of being seen as who we really are, which is the people of God who have suffered the worst injustices in the annals of history at the hands of those who continue to use and abuse us, dear family.
I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2024/173 please raise their hand? Those against?
One hand.
Abstentions?
You notice that it's the two thieves, the black hand of the black woman from America and then the white hand of the woman from the United Kingdom. The two of them, they're the ones abstaining. Britain abstaining, America against, voting against when it comes to the Palestinians and a ceasefire. You see, these people are evil. But look at the black woman, the black American woman that they're using, a woman who's, I'm sure she's probably a wife, she's probably a mother, she's probably a grandmother.
The result of the voting is as follows. 13 votes in favor, 1 vote against, 1 abstention. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the council.
America using a black.
I now give the floor to those members of the council who wish to make statements after the vote. I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, over the past few weeks, we have made incredibly clear that the resolution before the Council would not achieve the goal of a sustainable peace and may in fact run counter to it. Proceeding with a vote today was wishful and irresponsible. And so while we cannot support a resolution...
So everybody else, 13 members voting for a ceasefire, America using the black woman, no. And this is how you get now numbers, according to Lancet, maybe 186,000 dead people, maybe up to 200,000 now in Gaza, okay? Over maybe 20,000 of them children, women and children just being slaughtered every day because America, using a black woman, refuses to acknowledge that it's time to have a ceasefire, and then she has the audacity to be reading from a prepared statement written for her, you know, now to justify why, you know, she's not going to vote to stop the carnage that they are the #1 suppliers of the weapons for. I mean, just think of the position that we allow ourselves to be in, dear family.
that would put sensitive negotiations in jeopardy. We look forward to engaging on a text that we believe will address so many of the concerns we all share, a text that can and should be adopted by the Council so that we can have a temporary ceasefire as soon as practicable based on the formula of all hostages being released. This temporary ceasefire is critical to getting aid into the hands of Palestinian civilians who desperately need it. We should look towards this text so that we can finally condemn Hamas for their horrific attacks on October 7th, which set this conflict into motion, so that we can empower.
DJ Mr. P asked the question, what happened to majority rule? Yeah, exactly. But you see, America, these permanent five in the Security Council, they've got this veto, and the amount of times America has used the veto to stop sanctions and to stop actions being taken by the United Nations Security Council against Israel, it's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, family.
Senior Coordinator COG and the United Nations, because her success is the UN's success. And it is so very needed to ensure civilians get the aid that they need more efficiently and effectively. And
imagine the audacity. She's sitting there talking about, they need the aid and we want to, help the Palestinians and that they so desperately need, while you're giving Israel bombs and promoting this war. That's what you see. They speak out of both sides of their mouth. And they've got black people doing it on their behalf. And it's not lost on the world. The world is looking at us sideways, man. And then we wonder why we don't get no respect. You know that there was a time during the Vietnam War when the Viet Cong, the Vietnamese, were dropping leaflets for the black soldiers that came from America saying, why are you over here fighting against us when you suffer in America the way you do? Do you remember when Saddam Hussein took hostages in the early days of the Gulf crisis and he released the black ones from America and told them they could go home? We got no trouble with you, we got no war with you. Sending the blacks a message that, look, we don't see you in the same light, but we're so desperate to push our way back into the military. We want to be a part of America, want to be a part of Britain, want to be a part of the system of genocide, a part of the system of white supremacy. Sick. Sick.
More, period. And so that ultimately we can together help create a future in which Israelis and Palestinians live in states of their own, side by side, in peace. We're committed to engaging constructively on our resolution with you all in the days to come to that end. And we will continue to tirelessly engage in direct diplomacy and negotiations on the ground. Thank you.
Family, we are rolling up to the end. It's just, it's actually distressing. Based on his experiences of the invading, colonizing, and genocidal white man, the Native American of North America coined the phrase, white man speaks with forked tongue, because he knew that nothing this newcomer to his land said could be trusted, because he was a proven liar who broke every agreement and treaty, and he could never be trusted. I find it truly shocking how today we have so many black yet white-minded people who are just as duplicitous in words and deeds.
Now, we have James Cleverly. Good morning, James. If you happen to be leader of the Conservative Party this morning,
This is one of the black imps running to be leader of the Conservative Party now. And just listen to his politicking, listen to the language that is just lifted from the Israeli playbook.
What would you be saying to our Israeli allies?
Well, I mean, I would say to them what I've said to them already when I was Foreign Secretary, when I met with President Herzog, when I met with Prime Minister Netanyahu, Defense Minister Gallant. I've said that you do have a right to defend yourself, absolutely. They are surrounded by people who would do them harm. But when they do so, they have to abide by international law. They have to be conscious of civilian casualties. They have to act
Hear
with
this mealy-mouthed nonsense. They have to abide by international law. They have to be aware of civilian casualties. Well, really, where is any of that being made manifest? Where are they in obedience to international law? Where have they ever minded killing tens of thousands of innocent men, women, and children? See, this is words that they use, but then Britain, like America, keep supplying them with the weapons with a black face.
And restraint. So I will be consistent. I'm always consistent. What I said to them before is what I would say to them in the future.
Indeed, you said to me, actually, a couple of times in the last year that you want restraint and that there would be red lines for you. Have the Israelis crossed any red lines this week, do you think?
Well, what we've got to remember is that they've had hundreds of rockets fired into civilian...
Has the Israeli crossed any red lines? He's not answering the questions because he's a politician, okay? So he turns it back now to make Israel the victims. They're the victims. They're not the aggressors. They're not these genocidal, crazy, maniacal people who are destroying men, women, and children like they're flies. No. He's got to point out what, you know, we all know about rockets fired by people who are in a resistance against occupation, but that's what he wants to talk about. He don't want to talk about the dead Palestinians and the fact that their land is occupied by an occupier, and that's been going on for over 70 years. No, let's use the Israeli talking point, shall we?
Parts of Israel from southern Lebanon. And look, I am no longer, because we're in opposition, I am no longer able to access the detailed reporting that I did when I was Foreign Secretary, when I was Home Secretary. So it is.
But you don't need that to know whether the pager attacks and the airstrikes and so on might have crossed the red line.
No, Trevor, you do need to know. You do need to know, and it's easy to have a view.
So he can't comment on, you know, people, Israel using people's pages and blowing them up and killing innocent people on buses, in trains, driving their cars, in supermarkets, in the marketplace, blowing up their pages, blowing up walkie-talkies. He can't talk on that because he's no longer got access to the classified information that he used to have access to when he was in government, now that he's in opposition. What a mealy-mouth excuse. See? What a mealy-mouth excuse. What a politician's excuse.
Everyone has a view, but when you're in a position of leadership, the kind of positions that I have held and I aspire to hold in the future, you have to make your comments based on facts, not just on TV reporting, not just on social media, not just on gut instinct. Any idiot can do that. When you're in a position of genuine leadership, you have to base your comments and your decisions on the actual facts. I no longer have access to that detailed reporting, and I'm not going to speculate or guess about what exactly is going on.
When you say an idiot can do that, some of well, let's not say call anybody an idiot, but some of your colleagues and rivals have been pretty clear. They think that it's okay.
Well,
and they haven't had access to any secret information.
Well, as I said, I am used to having briefings from the head of our intelligence.
And you know, according to Trevor Phillips, some of his colleagues think it's perfectly okay what Israel has done, blowing up, you know, people using their pagers and their mobile phones and their walkie-talkies and all the rest of it. And if you look at the British media and a lot of the American media, they've been celebrating what Israel had done. And it was like James Bond, and it was so clever, and it was so, you know, but let another nation do something like that to them, and you would hear terrorism being screamed into and beyond the skies. I mean, it's just the hypocrisy knows no bounds, dear family. You see, blowing up people using everyday items, which apparently is actually against international law.
Services from the head of GCHQ in Cheltenham, I've got into the habit of basing my decisions on that detailed level of reporting. Right. I no longer have access to that, so I am going to, as I say, be a bit more restrained.
Yeah, you be restrained, James Cleverly, who is aspiring to be Pharaoh in England, running the Conservative Party. I mean, dear family, I hope you understand why you've seen so many black faces being trotted out today. When you see the former Prime Minister and leader of the Conservative Party being an Asian man, Rishi Sunak, and now that they have lost the election and are in opposition, so many black people standing to become the new leader, and even with white supporters, they got white supporters supporting this. To me, it's a clear sign that the white man's world is finished. And to justify the demise of his world, why not have a black face at the helm to blame? You know, why not have a black face at the helm that they can blame?
Let's start with our first leadership candidate, the Shadow Housing and Community Secretary, Kemi Badenoch. Ms. Badenoch, if you were leader of the Conservative Party this morning and a potential Prime Minister, what would you be saying to our allies, particularly the Israelis?
I would be congratulating Prime Minister Netanyahu. I think what they did was extraordinary. Israel is showing that it has moral clarity in dealing with its enemies and the enemies of the West as well. Hezbollah is a terrorist organization.
Are you listening? Are you listening to the pathology of black hypocrisy? She thinks that Israel's got moral clarity, and they are to be congratulated for what they did and what they're doing. My God, family. Oh, Nigeria, you should be ashamed of this thing that's representing your nation.
And I think that being able to remove the leader of Hezbollah, as they did, will create more peace in the Middle East.
Does that mean that you are ready to give the Israelis a free pass? Pager bombs, airstrikes, all of the rest of it?
It's not about a free pass, but Israel does have a right to defend itself. It is a small country surrounded by a lot of people who don't like it. Many of them have fled from those countries. Many Jewish people have fled from neighboring countries. Israel is their safe haven. And if we look at what happened on October 7th...
Jewish people haven't fled from nearby countries. They've come from Europe. The people who have got the issue and the problem in the Middle East are people who came out of Germany, people who came out of Poland, people who came out of England, people who came out of America, Europeans who have gone among Arab people, mostly Middle Eastern people, and have created absolute mayhem. Before the Europeans came, the Jews, the natural Jews of that region, they got on very well with the Arabs, and they all lived in some harmony in that region. Only when these European, Caucasian, white people, Ashkenazi Jews came in, that's when all the trouble began, because it's white supremacy, it's racism. Racism. Got nothing to do with anti-Semitism, got everything to do with white racism and anti-black racism. This is what's manifesting in that region.
That they cannot be complacent. They have to do what they need to do to defend themselves and, quite frankly, to survive.
So no red lines for Israel?
Of course, there will be red lines. We have international law for that. But as far as I saw when I was Trade Secretary, those lines were not crossed, and it was quite clear that the IDF and the Israeli government were doing everything they could to protect civilian lives. That doesn't mean that no civilian life would be lost. And of course, we understand that the Palestinian people in particular are suffering. This is very difficult for them, but we need to remember that the aggressor here is Hamas. That is what Israel is trying to destroy, as well as Hezbollah, of course.
Dear family, I do apologize. You know, we've gone a little bit long, but and I do apologize once again for our inability to play our opening segment this evening between 6 and 6:30. I hope it wasn't too inconvenient for anybody, but we are near the end. So in closing, dear family, let us look at another one of David Lammy's masterclasses in mimicking the slave master and clearly demonstrating that he is a professional black, playing a role on behalf of our open and collective enemy, and that he is not a black professional. He's a professional black, not a black professional, upholding the integrity and dignity of his people who continue to fight for freedom, justice, and equality from people like him. It's people like him that we've got to liberate ourselves from, dear family.
And now I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. David Lammy, Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs of the United Kingdom.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you Secretary General, for your briefing on the grim realities of this war. President Zelensky, the UK commends you not only for standing...
Look at the way these brothers from Sierra Leone are looking at him. They're wondering, who is this imp from England, you know, now sitting up here talking the way he's talking, like his white masters.
Up for your people, but for standing up for democracy. Seeing you in Kyiv a few weeks ago with Secretary Blinken, I saw ordinary people from all walks of life. The soldiers and the civilians, the firefighters and the first responders, the mothers and the fathers, working together in defense of freedom. Your bravery and courage is an inspiration to us all. But, Mr. President, I also want to speak direct.
I could stop this every second and break down every nuance of this ridiculous speech. He was just talking there about Zelensky. I mean, my God, that man is so corrupt and so evil, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to let it play. But I'm telling you, family, we've got to really study in order to understand the international realities of what's currently going on, because we are already in World War III. Understand this. And we've got these black imps, these blacks who are fronting this genocidal white supremacist colonial settler regime in Britain and in America that are just doing everything possible to take black people backwards, and it actually place us in the line of fire for Allah's wrath and even for the enemy's wrath because of our complicity in his evil. I really just want you to listen to this very, very duplicitous and ingenuous and really diabolical speech from this brother, this so-called brother at the United Nations on behalf of the so-called United Kingdom.
To the Kremlin and its representative here today. And Vladimir Putin, Russia sits on this council, but its actions tear up the UN Charter. Russia sits on this council, but over the weekend...
The only one who's ever physically torn up the United Nations Charter in that place is your ally, Israel. One of the theatrics that they did one day when he came to the place and actually tore up, their ambassador tore up the charter in front of the whole assembly. And you got the audacity to come here and talk about Russia tearing it up when it's your ally who physically tore it up in the past. And by their actions of being in opposition to the UN and everything the United Nations is supposed to stand for, and being one who is in violation of so many international laws and being guilty of genocide, and that's the one that you're standing next to, and you got the audacity to come here and start talking about tearing up the charter of the UN? Oh, man.
Russia sits on this council, but over the weekend, we saw it put forward amendments designed to wreck the UN's future. Russia claims to stand for the global south, but it runs roughshod over international law. Vladimir Putin.
Russia stood with the global south. Russia was one of the only nations of primarily white people, Caucasian people, who fought and gave us arms and allowed us to come there and train in order to fuel the African liberation struggle to free ourselves from the United Kingdom, to free ourselves from America, to free ourselves from France. It was Russia that was backing black people, you hypocrite. Damn hypocrite.
For the global south, but it runs roughshod over international law. Vladimir Putin, when you fire missiles into Ukraine hospitals, we know who you are. When you send mercenaries into...
Imagine, he's talking about Vladimir Putin firing missiles into Ukrainian hospitals. How many hospitals? And how many hospitals are left in Gaza that Israel hasn't destroyed? But you're standing right next to Israel, in love with Israel, promoting Israel, backing Israel, you yourself claiming to be some liberal Zionist, you damn hypocrite. Imagine these people, man. Imagine if Russia was doing to Ukraine what Israel has done to Palestine in the last 10 months. Imagine that Russia had killed a quarter, a percentage of the children that Israel has killed, and had destroyed a quarter, a percentage of the hospitals. There's hardly there's not a hospital left in the whole of Gaza that's not being destroyed. Not a school that's not being destroyed. Not a university that's not being destroyed. They've killed more journalists than in any war in the history of warfare. More doctors, more hospital workers, more UN staff. And this hypocrite has the audacity to sit there and let these words come out of his mouth. I'm telling you, family, we got to look at this hypocrisy, this pathology, because it's very, very dangerous. And we got black people like this among us who will do us tremendous harm if we allow them to stand before us as leaders.
When you fire missiles into Ukraine hospitals, we know who you are. When you send mercenaries into African countries, we know who you are. When you murder opponents in European cities, we know who you are. Your invasion is in your own interests, yours alone, to expand your mafia state into a mafia empire, an empire built on corruption, robbing from the Russian people as well as Ukraine, an empire built on crushing dissent, courageous opponents like Navalny, an empire built on lies, spreading disinformation at home and abroad to sow disorder. Mr. President, I speak not only as a Briton, as a Londoner, and as a Foreign Secretary.
This man said crushing dissent. When I think about Julian Assange and the amount of time that these people kept that man in prison for just being a journalist, for just telling the truth, for just revealing their evil, and this man has got the front to sit there and talk about crushing dissent in this world that we're living in UK now, where freedom of speech is like you take your life into your own hands just to tell the truth. My God. Where on YouTube they'll cancel your YouTube. They'll block you, they'll stop you just for speaking truth. I see so many YouTubers now, they can't even say certain words.
That's right.
You can't even say certain words because they'll censor you.
But I say to the Russian representative on his phone as I speak, that I stand here also as a black man whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of a gun to be enslaved, whose ancestors rose up and fought in a great rebellion of the enslaved.
Yeah, which great rebellion of the enslaved? Well, we stood up and we fought the great rebellion of the enslaved. He's just trying to be theatrical and dramatic and trying to talk like he cares about Africans and black people. You were probably one of the Africans who would have sold us into slavery, you damn hypocrite. This is the reality, and this is the other thing that why I criticize some of us when we like to talk about the ancestors. Yeah, we had some good ancestors and we had some damn evil ancestors. Remember that. So we don't get into this ancestor worship because some of our ancestors were evil. Some of our ancestors sold us to this demon, to this devil. Some of our ancestors were wielding the whips and the guns and the chains in order to capture us and sell us into bondage. And I'm looking at one of them sitting right there, right now. Don't ever make the mistake talking about the ancestors like they were all wonderful and good. No, we had good ancestors and we had some damn evil ones too. And we're looking at evil personified in the United Nations, representing the United Kingdom, talking this filth, talking about I'm a black man whose ancestors were enslaved by an empire. Yeah, which empire? The same empire you're representing now.
Mm-hmm.
They give out OBEs, Order of the British Empire, MBEs, member of the British Empire, and on and on and on. Talking about Russian Empire. These people are sick, man. They're really sick. They project onto others what they themselves are actually perpetuating and perpetrating and guilty of.
Ancestors were taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of a gun to be enslaved, whose ancestors rose up and fought in a great rebellion of the enslaved. Imperialism, I know it when I see it, and I will call it out for what it is. In this week, when I'm here talking to other partners around the world about our shared futures and the future of the UN, Russia is trying to return us to a world of the past, a world of imperialism, a world of redrawing borders by force, a world without the UN Charter. We cannot allow this to happen. Ukraine's fight matters to all of us. The UK will remain Ukraine's staunchest supporter. Because, Mr. President,
the same Ukraine where at the outbreak of hostilities was denying black people the ability to get on trains or to get on buses or to leave the country, and dogs and cats and other creatures could go ahead of black people, and black people who were students there were finding themselves being discriminated against. That's the Ukraine you're talking about, you damnable fool. You're an embarrassment, man. You're an embarrassment on the world stage to black people.
Are the stakes. If we let an imperialist redraw borders by force, those will not be the last borders to be redrawn. If we let an imperialist deny a nation its path, Ukraine will not be the last state to be subjected. Maduro will take encouragement and go for Guyana next. So let me be clear, we want peace in Ukraine. We want it for the Ukrainian people. As President Zelensky has said, it must be a peace that respects the fundamental principles that underpin the United Nations, the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, as enshrined in this UN Charter, the Charter of the United Nations. Putin's Russia wants to unravel it.
The charter that Israel, you and America completely ignores and tears up every day in your actions, you damn hypocrite.
Want to uphold it, and we will. As President Zelensky said, the UN Charter will prevail. Slava Ukraine.
Slava Ukraine. Dear family, I really want to thank you. I really want to thank you for your patience. I really want to apologize for taking so long, but I really needed to get through that. And I pray that, you know, something that was said this evening will again encourage you to look into these things and to really appreciate that, you know, the enemy is not just an external enemy. The enemy is an internal enemy. We do have, you know, real sellouts among us, real evil demons who betray us and who are happy to go along with a narrative which is the enemy's narrative, and that we cannot be afraid to identify them and call them out, because they will do us tremendous harm if we don't know who they are. And so I thank you, dear family, for allowing us to spend this time with you, and I pray that something that we said this evening will have been of benefit, and that you will have been inspired, enlightened, to really understand a bit deeper some of the geopolitical realities that we face, some of the social dynamics that currently plague us with these types of traitors and hypocrites and betrayers among us, and that we will be very wise in how we move in order to extricate ourselves from such evil and do something for ourselves. So I thank you. You know, may Allah bless you. I'm going to turn over to Sister Claudia Muhammad, but may Allah bless you as I greet you, as I found you in the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much, Brother Leo. You were definitely on a roll tonight,
Praise be to Allah.
considering how
I'm
what
hot.
happened before.
Yeah.
So all praises due to Allah. You can never thank Allah enough for the blessings, for allowing us to teach His word.
Absolutely.
So continuously thank Allah. So thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to tune in to the Final Call Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you can support this, the Final Call Radio. Just click on a link on Final Call. Also tune in to NOI.org. There's hundreds of videos on the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Today is a day that we must feed on right truth, guidance, because that is our nature. We're going against our nature when we're watching all these negative, filthy, satanic things. Feed your mind right guidance, and that is how we will grow into the mind of God. Also, subscribe to the Final Call newspaper. Absolutely fantastic articles. There is an article which relates to what you was teaching this evening, which is by the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, entitled "The UN and Nations Watch as Armageddon Looms." So, you know, subscribe to the Final Call newspaper. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button. And you can support us also. Thank you for your time.
Thumbs up, family.
thumbs
Like,
up,
share, and subscribe, please, to the Image of Nation show.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. And don't forget, this Monday is Saviour's Day, the Honourable Elijah Muhammad's birthday. Why not treat your loved ones, yourself, to a book of the Honourable Elijah Muhammad? Get to know who this wonderful, mercy, divine man is for yourself. So, you know, treat yourself and your family or your neighbor.
Yes, and don't forget, family, that tonight is our last meal.
Yes,
last meal, 3-day fast.
3-day fast.
We fast for 3 days each month. Tonight
right.
is the last meal, the first Thursday of the month, and then we don't eat again until Sunday. Try it, man. Go for it. You will feel so wonderful come Sunday. If you can abstain from food between now and then, you will feel so great. You will know that you are the controller of your whole being.
Absolutely.
You see, so give it a try. Give it a try, dear family. Try the 3-day fast. Last meal tonight, you can have your water and, you know, tea and coffee throughout Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then Sunday evening, you can break your fast and have yourself a beautiful meal. Try it. It's very, very good for you.
Oh, it's a benefit.
Praise
It's
be to Allah.
life-saving.
Praise be to
Absolutely.
Allah.
So thank you all for tuning in wherever you are on the planet Earth. May Allah God continue to bless all of you and your families. Have a blessed day. I'll say day. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Man from Nile, greetings from Melbourne. That's in Australia. Brother Leo, your new video at Speaker's Corner was dope.
Praise
Thank
be
you,
to Allah.
man
Thank
from
you.
Nile.
Thank you all for your comments.
Take care, family.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.